Thanks, Mr. President. I wanted to ask about two things that were on the agenda at the G7 this weekend. The first was the Islamic State. You said yesterday ahead of your meeting with Prime Minister Cameron that you'd assess what was working and what wasn't. So I'm wondering bluntly what is not working in the fight against the Islamic State. And in today's bilateral with Prime Minister Abadi, you pledged to step up assistance to Iraq. I'm wondering if that includes additional U.S. military personnel.
With respect to ISIL, we have made significant progress in pushing back ISIL from areas in which they had occupied or disrupted local populations. But we've also seen areas like in Ramadi where they're displaced in one place and then they come back in another. And they're nimble and they're aggressive and they're opportunistic. So one of the areas where we're going to have to improve is the speed at which we're training Iraqi forces. Where we've trained Iraqi forces directly and equipped them, and we have a train and assist posture, they operate effectively. Where we haven't, morale, lack of equipment, et cetera, may undermine the effectiveness of Iraqi security forces. So we want to get more Iraqi security forces trained, fresh, well-equipped, and focused. President Abadi wants the same thing. So we're reviewing a range of plans for how we might do that, essentially accelerating the number of Iraqi forces that are properly trained and equipped and have a focused strategy and good leadership. And when a finalized plan is presented to me by the Pentagon, then I will share it with the American people. It's not, we don't yet have a complete strategy because it requires commitments on the part of the Iraqis as well about how recruitment takes place, how that training takes place. And so the details of that are not yet worked out.
Is it fair to say that additional military personnel, U.S. military personnel, are part of what's under consideration?
I think what is fair to say is that all the countries in the international coalition are prepared to do more to train Iraqi security forces if they feel like that additional work has been taken advantage of. And one of the things that we're still seeing is in Iraq, places where we've got more training capacity than we have recruits. So part of my discussion with Prime Minister Abadi was how do we make sure that we get more recruits in? A big part of the answer there is our outreach to Sunni tribes. We've seen Sunni tribes who are not only willing and prepared to fight ISIL, but have been successful at rebuffing ISIL. But it has not been happening as fast as it needs to. And so one of the efforts that I'm hoping to see out of Prime Minister Abadi and the Iraqi legislature when they're in session is to move forward on a National Guard law that would help to devolve some of the security efforts in places like Anbar to local folks and to get those Sunni tribes involved more rapidly. This is part of what helped defeat AQI, the precursor of ISIL during the Iraq War in 2006. Without that kind of local participation, even if you have a short-term success, it's very hard to hold those areas. The other area where we've got to make a lot more progress is on stemming the flow of foreign fighters. Now, you'll recall that I hosted a UN General Security Council meeting specifically on this issue. And we've made some progress, but not enough. We are still seeing thousands of foreign fighters flowing into first Syria and then oftentimes ultimately into Iraq. And not all of that is preventable, but a lot of it is preventable if we've got better cooperation, better coordination, better intelligence, if we are monitoring what's happening at the Turkish-Syria border more effectively. This is an area where we've been seeking deeper cooperation with Turkish authorities who recognize it's a problem, but haven't fully ramped up the capacity they need. And this is something that I think we've got to spend a lot of time on. If we can cut off some of that foreign fighter flow, then we're able to isolate and wear out ISIL forces that are already there, because we're taking a lot of them off the battlefield. But if they're being replenished, then it doesn't solve the problem over the long term. The final point that I emphasized to Prime Minister Abadi is the political agenda of inclusion remains as important as the military fight that's out there. If Sunnis, Kurds, and Shia all feel as if their concerns are being addressed and that operating within a legitimate political structure can meet their need for security, prosperity, non-discrimination, then we're going to have a much easier time. And the good news is Prime Minister Abadi is very much committed to that principle, but obviously he's inheriting a legacy of a lot of mistrust between various groups in Iraq. He's having to take a lot of political risks. In some cases, there are efforts to undermine those efforts by other political factions within Iraq. And so we've got to continue to monitor that and support those who are on the right side of the issue there.